Feeling lost? Feeling confused? Well, look no further. This video has just about everything a new player would want to know about Elden Ring. The game has outperformed expectations and, as such, there are many new players to the series. From stat points to starting jobs to blacksmithing, there are quite a few systems in place that aren't too intuitive for newcomers, like yourself. So howdy folks, Really Old Inferno is here to hold your wee little hand and teach you a few things. When you first fire up the game, you're presented with multiple jobs to pick from. As you might suspect, these jobs affect your role. If you pick Bandit, then you're going to be a dagger and bow type. If you're more of a mage, then you're going to want to pick Astrologer. The thing that's important to know is that all these jobs are for is early game stat allocation and comfort. If you want a true, fully customizable character, you would pick the Wretch. It starts level 1, so there's no stat points in any category, but it comes with no gear. So early game you might get bodied a bit versus had you picked the level 10 Confessor that comes with equipment and stats. Now at some point you will get the ability to reallocate your points, so there's no need to worry about getting locked into whatever your current build is. One thing to note in regards to respecking though, you will start with your job's base stats. Here, I've picked Confessor, so as you can see, the stat allocation is all over the place, skewing towards Faith Mind. If you were to respec, this would be your job's ground zero. If that's something that really matters to you and you want to optimize as much as possible, then you're definitely going to go with Wretch. As I said earlier, outside of Wretch, every job has pre-allocated stats. These stats are Vigor, Mind, Endurance, Strength, Dexterity, Intelligence, Faith, and Arcane. In-game, you can look at your status and view exactly what each of these do, but in short, Vigor equals more HP, Endurance equals more stamina and weight capacity, Mind equals more FP, Strength equals more damage with strength weapons, Dex equals more damage with Dex weapons and reduced cast time, Intelligence boosts sorceries, Faith boosts incantations, and Arcane boosts item discovery. So basically, it's just your luck stat. If you like being unga bunga and doing big numbers, then Strength is what you'd like. If you like being a squirrely little fucker and using things like knives and curved swords, then Dex is your friend. Intelligence is for the spell nerds and Faith is also for the spell nerds, but holier. It's generally good to try and spec into things that work well together. Vigor plus Strength to tank and spank, Dex plus Int for fast spellcasting. Typically speaking, you aren't going to load all of your points into only one category. Now let's say you come across a weapon you really like, but you can't equip it because it might require 30 Strength and 17 Dex, and you've put all your points into Strength. Well, you're just fucked until you hit that 17 Dex, or be forced to wait until you can respec. It's inevitable that there will be some weapons you just can't use, so try to keep this in mind when you're leveling up. Each weapon has a fairly unique moveset, so try to find something you like and stick with it. Personally, I'm a big fan of the Twin Blades. If you know who Darth Maul is, then you know exactly what I'm all about. But I'll explain the following terms in PlayStation format, starting with right-handed combat. R1 is to do your basic attack. It is also how you get backstabs on the enemy. R2 is for your heavy attack and you can charge it up. If you fully charge it, then you have a higher chance to break the enemy's stance and follow up with a visceral attack, which is also R1. Backstep in R1 is a quick evasive attack. Jump in R1 does a jumping light attack. Jump in R2 does a jumping heavy attack. Jumping R2 is particularly good with some weapons because it does a decent amount of damage and tends to break the stance of the enemy, which gives you an opening. If you hold triangle and you press R1, you two-hand your weapon. Holding triangle and pressing L1 two-hands the weapon in your left hand. This increases the strength by 50%, changes your base moveset, and allows you to do the weapon skill with L2. In the left hand is where you typically would place your more supplementary stuff, although you can certainly put whatever you want over there. So typically a shield, a seal, or a staff would go in your left hand. If you have a weapon in your left hand, only L1 works with it. Pressing L2 activates the right-handed weapon skill. If you're in a power stance, which means you're wielding two of the same class of weapon, it may change your moveset. Otherwise, it just swings the weapon. If you have a shield on, simply hold L1 to block. Getting a hit costs stamina, and different shields have different block values. So, for example, if you have a shield with 100 in physical, then that means it blocks 100% of physical damage. so there's no worries about any damage piercing. Some shields also have skills, but the one you'll find on most shields is parry, which is very, very useful. You'd be surprised on the number of enemies it works on. Then it all comes down to you learning the timing of their attacks and fucking them up. Blacksmithing is quite straightforward. The weapon is used as the base, and you use smithing stones and runes to upgrade it. The higher it goes, the more runes it costs to upgrade and the rarer mats it requires. With upgrading weapons, it increases their damage and scaling. The higher the scaling, the stronger the max potential of the weapon, with the highest being S and the lowest being E. And honestly, that's really all there is. You can customize your weapon further through acquiring Ashes of War. These change your L2 skill of your weapon, and if you found different wet blades on your journey, they allow you to customize the affinity of your weapon. So you can do things like put on something as powerful as Bleed on your weapon that doesn't naturally contain it. The only downside to this being, you lose the current skill of the weapon you're using, which is mostly only troublesome if you're using a unique weapon with a unique skill. Taking the affinity and skill off restores the weapon's original skill though, so it's not like it's lost forever. And one important thing to note is Ashes of War are not consumed, so you can easily mix and match or use later. It's all to your discretion. Before we wrap up here, here's a couple of useful tips that'll help you along your way. When first starting the game, go with the Golden Seed. It allows you to upgrade the number of flasks you have. This is your primary source of recovery. Don't be afraid to put a message down every now and then. For every upvote it receives, you get some healing. Explore ruins and caves. These are typically always optional, but the rewards you get are very useful. Depending on your build. If you see little golden trees sticking out of the ground, investigate them. These are where you'll find more golden seeds for your flask. The more seeds you have, the better. Buy the crafting kit from the vendor in the Church of Ella. You can find this very close to your starting grace. It will allow you to craft some pretty useful things when you find cookbooks. If you hold down on the D-pad, it snaps to the first item set. This is kinda helpful so you aren't constantly cycling through your pockets. Talk to NPCs and take your time. The world is massive and bursting with extra things to do. And with that, I'm out. If you watched this video and you found it helpful at all, please drop a like. And until next time, cheers.